We've rounded up another awesome batch of Xbox deals for you this week, starting off with a few that will be perfect with those of you who are still reeling from some of Gamescom's hottest trailers last month.
And that begins with Saints Row the Third Remastered, which has now got 60% knocked off its price. Gamescom showed off a new look Saints, which seems to be taking things into slightly more grounded territory, while still remaining the over-the-top sensibility that made the series so popular. And no previous game balances those two sides more perfectly than Saints Row the Third. When it's being a little more serious, the third game features some of the coolest action set pieces ever to grace an Xbox console. Like the unforgettable sequence where you jump out of a helicopter and lay siege to a penthouse party to the tune of Kanye West's Power. Honestly, iconic stuff. And when it's being not so serious, well then you get to commit insurance fraud and get in fights with luchadors. It's all insanely fun, and with the addition of 4K and 60 FPS on the Xbox Series X and S, Saints Row the Third has never had more swagger.
Also making a ton of noise at this year's Gamescom was the latest entry in the always delightful LEGO Star Wars series. But if you don't feel like waiting for the full Skywalker saga to arrive to get your fill of blocky Jedi action, The Force Awakens is now 75% off. Just like all the LEGO games, The Force Awakens is like an overflowing toy box of Easter eggs and winking references to the Star Wars universe at large. Whether it's a secret character to unlock, an extra bit of information on what went down between movies, or just a random bit of overheard dialogue about this hot new canteen over on Tatooine, Star Wars fans will find themselves careening towards that 100% complete mark before they know it. But even for those who are a little more resistant to Jedi mind tricks, the game is a hugely enjoyable platformer that has you constantly switching between puzzle solving, cover-based shooting, and TIE fighter blasting so that there's never a dull moment.
Also turning heads last month was Dying Light 2, which promises another chance to run, roll, and jump through a dilapidated wasteland. But you have to free walk before you can free run, so why not pick up the enhanced edition of the original now that it's half price? Dying Light takes place within a vast open world that's really seen better days. What with all the zombies roaming around and the general collapse of civilized society, which makes the whole thing one ginormous concrete playground for you to parkour your way around, lopping off the odd zombie head along the way. The game's fluid blend of acrobatics and melee combat gives it a fresh quality, allowing you to constantly figure out new maneuvers on the fly as you dash through the city, slicing through the undead. And the Enhanced Edition lets you roam even further, with a ton of bonus content packaged in, including the huge story edition, The Following.
While Gamescom had a lot of us casting our mind forward into 2022, it might be worth keeping part of your brain in the present to check out the time-splitting adventures of 2021's Cris Tales. The game takes place in a fantastical kingdom filled with evil empresses, sweet-natured orphans, and talking frogs. So far, so JRPG. But where Cris Tales sets itself apart is in a clever gameplay mechanic which splits the screen in three, allowing you to see the past, present, and future of your surroundings at the same time. By moving between them strategically, you can outfox your enemies and solve all kinds of puzzles. But as a certain arachnid-inspired teenager once learned, with great power comes great responsibility. So be careful about how you use your time-bending abilities, or you'll find a third of your screen becoming awfully dreary. Cris Tales is now 20% off, and it's also available on Xbox Game Pass, so it's probably in your future one way or another. And don't forget, for all the latest Game Pass news, all you need to do is hit that subscribe button. That's it, nicely done.
If Borderlands 3 was your first trip down to Pandora and you're curious to see what else that whacked out wasteland has to offer, look no further than the Legendary Collection, which is now 60% off. This sweet triple pack contains the original, the second game, and the pre-sequel, which takes place neatly sandwiched between the two. Altogether, it makes for hours and hours of exploration, a huge cast of truly insane characters, weird enemies, and so many guns. While each game makes for a great solo adventure, they all come alive even more when you tag in a friend and go vault hunting together. Since each character has a distinct style and speciality, learning to blend them together is the key to dominating the Borderlands. The series itself has always taken a more is more approach to gaming, and this collection might just be the most more-ish one out there.
If aliens visited Earth, there'd probably be a lot of things about human culture that would be incredibly hard to explain to them, like milk crate challenges, Nicolas Cage, or Toejam and Earl. And that last one is kind of ironic because it's literally about aliens coming to Earth. Originally landing back in 1991, Toejam and Earl immediately became a cult hit thanks to its Saturday morning cartoon art style, wacky sense of humor, and the incredibly smooth funk soundtrack that the whole thing was built around. With Back in the Groove, which is now 60% off by the way, you get all of that plus a visual polish worthy of 2021 and a bunch of added content to make the game richer, slicker, and just flat out groovier than ever before. Guiding the hapless alien buddies along their adventure is also one of the all-time great couch co-op experiences. So, if you've got a friend or a family member who you think could do with spending a little time on Planet Funkatron, send them Toejam and Earl's way now.
Turns out Vision might have been onto something when he asked what grief is, if not love just persevering. Because What Remains of Edith Finch somehow takes a story about the loss of your entire family and turns it into one of the most exuberant tales you'll find anywhere in gaming, even if it is one tinged with sadness. This first-person adventure game sees you returning to the family home after 7 years and a series of untimely deaths. By unlocking the doors to each family member's room, you get a glimpse into who they were, and this is how a game about death manages to be so overflowing with life. Each new section changes up the art style, perspective, and even the whole genre of game that you're playing, ensuring that every chapter is covered in that character's distinct personality. It means that you'll miss each family member even more when they're gone, but only because of how fun they were to be around while they were here. What Remains of Edith Finch is simply unlike anything you're going to play, and it's now 60% off as well as being available on Xbox Game Pass.
Next up, we've got the Gourmet edition of Overcooked 2. Playing as a pair of adorable cartoon chefs, it's up to you to keep the diners happy by completing each order just the way it's supposed to be and in a timely fashion. While it might sound simple enough, staying on top of it all can make for a pretty frantic experience once things start to get busy. And it doesn't help that the kitchens you'll be working in come with a few quirks like conveyor belts, wandering ingredients, magic portals, and spontaneous combustion. Typical kitchen, really. It's really a wonder that any of these places ever passed a health and safety check when you think about it. But culinary hazards aside, Overcooked 2 is sure to serve up one hilarious mishap after another, especially when you're playing in co-op. The a la carte version of the game is now available on Xbox Game Pass, while the Gourmet edition is 50% off to own outright, and comes supersized with all the game's add-ons like the Surf and Turf package. So you're guaranteed to walk away absolutely stuffed.
A Plague Tale has also been back on our minds a lot recently thanks to the spectacularly sinister trailer for next year's sequel, Requiem, which will give players another chance to escape into a world of deadly pandemics and corrupt politicians back in ye olden days. The original Plague Tale is still well worth checking out, especially now that it's 70% off to purchase or available to play right now on Xbox Game Pass. Set during the 14th century, the game revolves around a pair of children fleeing the French Inquisition, as war and disease ravage the world around them. With danger at every turn, you'll need to stick to the shadows and be careful of who you trust if you don't want to wind up as rat food. But if you're playing on the Xbox Series X and S, your nightmarish existence will at least be played out at a smooth 60 FPS. So that's something, right?
To finish up on an equally horrifying note, Dead by Daylight is now half price, while again, Xbox Game Pass members can get scared out of their spines without spending an extra penny. That's proper smart. This asymmetrical multiplayer game takes the classic slasher formula of one very scary bad guy plus several very scared people and turns it into one of the most exhilarating horror experiences around, as you and the other survivors work desperately to escape while the killer stalks your footsteps. Over the years, Dead by Daylight has invited all sorts of horror legends to appear as its very special guest stars, with Resident Evil's Nemesis doing the honors most recently. Perfect for anyone who was just beginning to get over the damage he did back in the 90s. But that's not to say that the Daylight crew aren't perfectly capable of cooking up their own original nightmares, like Jeffrey Hawke, the killer clown who we recently got to learn more about. Way more about. Too much more, some might say.
From kitchen nightmares to actual nightmares, this week's collection of deals is almost scarily good. So let us know in the comments which ones you'll be digging into, and remember to subscribe and ring that bell for all the latest bargains, updates, and interesting info from the wide world of Xbox. Bye!